Hello, this is Brian Funk, and thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I'm very excited to announce that my new book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, is now available in paperback form, a real book that you can hold and touch and turn to any page you like in a second. And it's a pretty big book, 629 pages of activities, exercises, and wisdom I've learned over the years. It's available on Amazon.com. 5-Minute Music Producer is 365 music-making activities that will help with your songwriting and music production. It'll help you fight writer's block, make more music, write better lyrics, develop solid workflows, learn techniques for generating ideas, and finish more music. It's like having your very own music production personal trainer giving you ideas and challenges each day. And the best part is the challenges are quick and easy, and they only take a few minutes. So even if you don't have a lot of time, you can spend 5 minutes and advance your music production skills. There's no better time to improve your music than now. Imagine where you'll be after a year of these activities. The 5-Minute Music Producer has hit the #1 new release in the music songwriting and music recording and sound categories on Amazon. So check out the 5-Minute Music Producer, 365 music-making activities. It's available on Amazon.com, or you can go to brianfunk.com/book. Hello and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk, and on today's show, I have Ariane Paras. And if you recognize that name, that's because she was also on the show, episode 279, and that was almost a year ago now. She runs Olympia Coaching, where she helps artists and creatives find their path, really. If you've been making music for any amount of time or creating art for any amount of time, undoubtedly you've been hit with self-doubt, with insecurities, just struggles on how to move forward and how to overcome all these things that we have to deal with when we put ourselves out there. And that's where Ariane comes in. So she's a great voice of reason to have. That's why she's back. Ariane, welcome back to the show. Good to see you again.
Hi, thanks so much for having me back. I'm very happy to be here again.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. It's always nice to get some wisdom and reason and some just help along the way, because it seems like it's inevitable. As much as I've been doing this for most of my life now, every single project, there comes a point where the doubt creeps in. And then next thing you know, I've found myself thinking like, what am I doing? Well, who gave me the right to do this? And it's so easy to slip into that. And if you're not careful, it can really take you for a ride. And next thing you know, you're not doing anything anymore. And I've gone through those periods before. So I think this is a great, useful conversation for anyone that might be experiencing that, because probably everybody has in some point, one way or another.
Totally. It's, I really believe those of you who are artists, those of us who are entrepreneurs, we are taking the path least traveled. And it's not always easy, right? It's not always easy, but I want you to, first of all, congratulate yourself for even being on that path in the first place, because those of us who really follow a passion and you are honoring really what's most important to you, you are honoring your true path, which is the path of the artist. That says a lot about you, right? That says a lot about you, that you are not settling. Even if music is a side career for now, you're still honoring it, you're showing up for it. And I think that's a life well lived with no regrets. So yeah, even though it gets hard, first of all, you're on the path. So well done.
Yeah, I agree. There's a certain bravery and guts and maybe even a dash of arrogance, and all those like ingredients really do need to come in just so you can put yourself on that road. Because again, like I said kind of before, like what gives me the right to do this is a thought I have a lot. Especially because I'm not particularly qualified. Other than that, I've just been doing it. So it's easy to worry about that quite a lot.
Yeah. That sounds like the imposter syndrome, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
What gives you the right? And I think it's important to address those thoughts and those beliefs when they pop up in your mind. And that's something I work with my clients on when they don't feel the right to even call themselves a musician. Like I'm working with someone at the moment. They've been doing music since they were kids. They have talent. Then they kind of stop. They have another creative career that's not music. And I'm helping him claim that status again about identifying himself as a musician. And I think it's really, really important to start from the identity and really claim that for yourself. Like you don't need to have a right for it. You shouldn't wait for the world to give you that permission, to grant you that permission, or to recognize you as an artist. You have to do that for yourself first, right? Like I am an artist, I'm claiming that right. And therefore, if you really own that, you're going to start to think and act as an artist. Like, what does an artist do? Like, they practice regularly their craft. How do they think? Well, they think in terms of, getting better and like finding ways to bring forth the best of their creative expression through, and then taking the steps, like doing what they need to have that career in music. You see what I mean? It starts with the identity piece. Yeah. And truly, you don't need to ask anyone's permission. You don't need to ask anyone's approval. It doesn't really matter like what qualifications you may have, especially as an artist, I would say, as a musician. Like you play music, even if you never studied music, you might have an amazing gift. You might have a way to put things together creatively, and that's all you need.
Well, there's no authority that grants you this like license. Like if I think back on my life, like some of the jobs I've had, I was a stock boy at a supermarket. I was a waiter. I was a manager at a public pool. I was a cashier at a bookstore. I'm a teacher. All of those titles were given to me the moment I was hired. So it was, okay, now you're this thing. It's like, all right, I guess I'm a waiter now. Okay, here goes. But musician was never that. It was just like, I don't think I'm going to try playing the guitar and play it long enough. And at what point do you call yourself a musician? I had an art teacher in high school, Miss Tabazio, was a great teacher. I remember her saying something along the lines of, if you're not a musician the moment you pick up a guitar, you're not a lawyer the moment you do this or that. But she's like, the moment you put your pen to the paper, you're an artist. And it kind of drew like an interesting line for me that, especially when you're making music, and nowadays more than ever, you don't actually even need to be a musician, but you can be like an artist with sound the moment you start playing with it and you start experimenting with it. And I always like that statement, like the moment you decide, you become that thing. And you kind of said that too, like what does an artist do? That's now how you behave once you claim that. Well, then start doing those things and you are now that thing. Mm-hmm. But that's a powerful part, and to it's not as, I think we think of it with like a capital M, or a musician or an artist with a capital A, and it's not like that. It's not that serious. You just are. You don't need to be anointed to have that.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly that. It's something that you are, right? It's something that you are deep down. It's your true nature as an artist. I think you always knew that somehow. It was always in you somehow. I think so many musicians, they always had that in their lives, even if it was not officially I have a music career, but I have that in my life. So it's who you are deep down, and it's honoring that part of you, or it's honoring the inner artist in you that wants to express, and And also I've heard other people say that, how if you're an artist and you have these gifts, then it's also your duty to show up for it. And maybe, I think Rick Rubin also says, he says that creativity, all these creative ideas are floating, right? They're out there, they're floating on in the unmanifest plane. And the artist is the vessel that receives and the instrument that makes manifest. So maybe that takes away some of the seriousness of like, I'm a professional musician. No, I'm just someone who just has that gift and that ability to pick up things and bring them forth into the world.
Who did you say said that?
Rick Rubin.
Oh, Rick Rubin, yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
who's just published a really great book about
Yes.
creativity and the creative process.
Is it The Creative Act, is it called?
Yeah.
I loved it. I have the audio version of him reading it too, which is nice to hear him in his slow, low tone. You know, it's very comforting sound, his voice, and what he has to say is empowering. And I always liked that idea that these things are sort of out there. And rather than, like, if I'm making a song, it's rather than I'm like a builder with like bricks putting it together. It's more like I'm a fisherman. I've got like the net and I'm swinging it around either in the sky or in the water, or wherever you want to think about it. And you catch things and then it's up to you to turn it into something.
Exactly.
I like the idea of musician more like a verb, or artist more like a verb, because then it's an action, right? And when I look back on my life, I've always had a lot of creative things I was into, drawing, and even like when I think of like the things I would do with my friends, it was very imaginative play, pretending, you know, and but still, it's when you start thinking like, am I artistic? Am I creative? You kind of wonder like, I don't know. I just, I don't know that it's like this thing that was always in me, or just it's kind of in us when we do it. When you engage in it, it's you. Then that's what you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who defines what's artistic or not? You know, if you go to a modern art museum, maybe half the people watching the work of art is going to think it's rubbish. Half of it is going to think it's genius. Some people are going to think it's not art. Some people are going to think my 5-year-old can do better. You know, who defines? I think a child that just draws something on a piece of paper, that's art if you decide it to be.
It was, I think so, because that's a 5-year-old's expression of whatever. And it doesn't even have to be a deep thing. It could just be scribbling on the paper. But it's kind of interesting when you look at it from that perspective, like, oh, this is what a 5-year-old decided to do with these crayons. And they made the elephant yellow. Like, what did they do? That? And we can all analyze and think about it. But and it might be totally random, but that is part of what art does, is it makes you think about things and try to connect dots. And I know sometimes the dots weren't even really intentionally put there by some artists, but if it's something arranged in a way interesting enough that causes that in the viewer, it's like it's in the eye of the beholder type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and that what's nice about that is it's not really on me. It's like, you figure it out. And like, I'm just going to throw together some things that I find interesting when you juxtapose them. But the real meaning is not necessarily what I think it is, or even what you think it is. It's just what anyone that's looking at it thinks it is.
Yeah, totally.
I had a hard time with that at school when I was younger, with especially in regards to like books. This is the theme of the book. And I was like, how did you know? Like, did the like gods of literature give the teacher the answer and now you know what it is? Because I don't think it was presented to me in the way of thinking like, you decide what it is. What does it mean to you? So it was like scary. And I would read books and like not be sure if I understood it the right way. But getting older and engaging in like just stuff like this myself, I started to realize like, no, it's the meaning is neither here with the artist or there with the reader, really. It's somewhere in between in the transmission.
Yeah, and I think that can be helpful for artists because I know sometimes it's a little bit scary to put your music out into the world, to share it with others. It can feel very vulnerable because there's fears of judgment, of criticism, what if it's not good enough, all that kind of stuff. And so that could be a helpful perspective to realize it's not really yours. You're just bringing it out into the world. I remember me and a client came up with this analogy where he was saying how all these different creative ideas were like little creative babies. So we played with this analogy and how you are, as the artist, you are, let's say, the birther of this, the parents. So you bring it into the world, and it's your responsibility or your duty to really nurture this baby, to make sure that it has everything that it needs to thrive, to grow, once it's let out into the world, i.e. promoting the work, staying consistent, giving it the best chance to be heard by people who need to hear it. But then it's that baby's life, it's their own life for them to live, right? Like you have to let them go, you have to let them free, and therefore how it's received, it's not really, I think it can be helpful to realize, okay, then I can just let it go and have its own life once I've helped nurture it and give it the best chance to have a good life. And then whatever happens next, it's kind of like a little bit out of my control, and that could lessen the fears of judgment and feeling it, whether if you feel it's not good enough and that kind of stuff.
That's a cool way to think about it. I like that.
Yeah. It's like trying to find reframes and perspectives. A lot of it is so much mindset work. So sometimes it's helpful to find ways to trick your brain so you do the thing. So you don't stay stuck in paralysis or inertia or fear.
In developing that metaphor a bit of the nurturing the baby idea and the child and letting it kind of be what it wants to be, I think to like teenage years where maybe it's capable of being on its own, but what starts to happen a lot of times with parents and teenagers is this conflict, right? The parent doesn't want to let it go. They're worried about it. They want to make sure it's safe. And the teenager wants to go, but it still needs to be nurtured. And, I want to be out of here. I don't want to stay in this house. Could I borrow the car? So there's this like point when you're trying to release the song. How do you know? How do you figure that out? I'm sure this must be like a big one for people. It's almost like a child. Like, how do I know my kid's good enough to be out there in the world? How do I know my song is ready?
Yeah, and maybe I think where a lot of people get stuck is because there's perfectionism that comes into play, where they're trying to make something perfect. And I get it, because I think it's again linked to that fear of judgment. What if I put something and it's not well received or whatever? But sometimes, like maybe if you get into that habit of, okay, I'm just going to start releasing things, knowing that not all of the music that I release is the best music in the world or the best that I can do, right? Like you're not meant to do something perfectly each time. The point is, like you were saying before, an artist is more a verb than, it's like it's an action. Like I'm producing art, I'm producing music, and letting it out into the world. And I think Rick Rubin talks about that as well, where he says, I can't remember exactly what he says, but something along the line of, when will you know when it's ready? Like the piece of music will tell you. There's no formula. There's no algorithm. There's no checklist to take to know that it's ready. It's more like a feeling. It's a feeling. And just really paying attention to what goes in your head. If you are scared of putting it out, what is it really about? Is it about the music itself, or is it about some projected scenarios of what you think could happen?
Yeah, right. I think there's a fun I think it was Tim Ferriss has this kind of activity fear setting, where he did a TED talk on it, and he talks about imagining the worst case scenario, like really digging in. Because I think when we're ready to release something, we kind of have these like little like flashes of the worst case scenario. But when you actually play it out and imagine what can happen, it starts to get ridiculous. You start to see like, okay, that's not good. And it's a kind of nice exercise to, because you're addressing it. And I think that's what you're getting at, is a lot of like mindfulness and paying attention to these thoughts, instead of letting them kind of control what we're doing, but just stepping aside from them a little bit and looking at them to see if
Yeah,
they make sense or if they're legitimate.
exactly. Because our brain is a thought making machine, it's a stories making machine as well. We make stories all the time about all sorts of things. We assume, we project, we pretend we know the future, but none of that is true. So that's why it's really important to pay attention to our thoughts, because our thoughts create our reality. Literally, what you end up doing comes from an action you took because you had a thought and because you had a belief. So it's really paying attention to those thoughts. And in a way as well, it's to make it, I think when we get tripped up, it's because we get our ego involved. And when I say ego, we all have an ego. I'm not talking about Kanye West's type of ego. So when, like, for example, I'm just going to give you an example. Like, I know a lot of us, especially more introverted types, we find it hard to promote ourselves, to be out there, to be, to do what we need to do to promote our work, your music, and so on. So one thing that can be helpful is to think of it as you're promoting the music, and make it about the music, make it about maybe the message that you want to share. If your music has lyrics, maybe you're talking about a specific topic that is really important. Maybe there's a typical certain impact you want to have on people, or maybe an impact that people have when they hear the music that you make. So it's making it about the music and about the message, rather than making it about you and what could happen if, like, the worst case scenarios, like you said, which is very unlikely. But even if it happened, like, so what, right? Like, it's kind of like removing our ego from the work and being in service of the work itself, or the message, or the impact, rather than doing it because you think, oh, I need to promote myself. It's not really about me. It's about the music itself.
Yeah, this is a tough point for a lot of people, myself included, to promote, to put things out. And because I think a lot of artists are introverts. There's kind of, I guess there's the other side of it where maybe they're more performers, the extrovert that wants to get out there. But I think a lot of people are drawn to music and art because they are introverted and they have these things inside. It's a way to get it out. So doing that stuff can seem scary, challenging, or just feel unnatural. But you think in those cases we're better off. It's hard. It's hard to detach ourselves from it too, right? Like, if you make something, it's not. People rarely just take it for itself. They always look to who made it and the person behind it. Every time I hear a song I like, as much as I would love for the music to only speak for itself, I always say, "Who's that? Who made this? Like, what band? What artist? Who is this?" I always kind of wonder, whose painting is that? There's always that question. So I think that makes it very hard. Do you have any thoughts on how to do that, to separate yourself?
So when you ask that question, who is that, is actually because you are interested in that person. You're curious about them. You want to know more about them. So it's a positive thing, isn't it? It's like this really nice curiosity and openness to know more about someone.
It at least moved me enough to wonder.
Yeah. So when you're an introvert, of course, like the fears that can come up are fear of people knowing you, fear of people seeing you, and then that is that vulnerability, and but I guess it's just like allowing yourself to be seen, to be heard, to be known, which is like wow, like that's kind of like really deep spiritual work, I would say, right? Like to allow ourselves to be known without so much protection. Because at the end of the day, when it's uncomfortable, it's because we're trying to protect ourselves from hurt, because we are sensitive. Like introverts can be sensitive also. But yeah, it's kind of like making it about the work, allowing yourself to be seen with your flaws, because no one is perfect. And knowing that people do judge, right? Like I know sometimes clients tell me, well, what happens if I get online and this happens? And I'm like, yeah, it might happen. Like people judge. That's what we do. Like as human beings, we live in this world of duality, of good, bad, cold, warm. I like it, I don't like it. So we live in that world. So allow other people to possibly judge you. And at the same time, it's again coming back to that place of it's not really about me, it's about the message, it's about the music. And am I willing to then have people have the wrong idea about me if they do? Am I willing to let some love in when people do appreciate what I do? And being very careful about these stories that my mind is making, and paying attention to, how we are very good at obsessing about the one thing that's not working out, or the one person that didn't like the thing we're doing. And then we completely ignore the 90% things that are working, or the people who love it. So it's like also being discerning and choosing where you place your focus. Are you placing your focus on the positive stuff, or are you just obsessing about that one thing that could be unpleasant? And yeah, like learning to let it go, like learning to if you do have like something that is unpleasant, if you do have a negative comment on social media, it's learning to not take it so personally, because especially with social media, people don't really know you just because they've seen something about you on social media. So it's not taking it personally. And there's this quote that I love about communication. It's from a book called The Course in Miracle. And it says that every bit of communication is either, I can't remember exactly how they say it, but it's either a demonstration of love or it's a cry for help. So realizing that anyone who may be criticizing you is actually someone who's in pain themselves.
Right. It's almost more a reflection of them than, I mean, this is like when you're a kid, like bullying 101, right? Usually it's not so much that they're coming at you for something. There's something going on in them that is being projected out, and whether it's an insecurity they have, they don't want the attention on them, so they put it on someone else, or whatever it is. It's a means of getting power over somebody. Like, look at how I can make this person feel upset. That gives me power, especially when you're young and you don't have any other power. That's sometimes one way to find it, unfortunately. It is good to know that intellectually. And if I'm going on Amazon to buy something and it has like 4.7 stars out of 5, I'm like, oh, great, that's awesome, I'll buy it. You might read what some of the people say, but when it's me and I see 4.7s, I can't pay attention to 4.7. I can only pay attention to 0.03 or 0.3, Why do you think that is? I think that's a lot of us, where it takes about 100 positive comments to wash away one negative.
It simply comes from our reptilian brain, the part of us that is very, very ancient, that's only about survival, that has to be super attuned to the tiger that's going to kill us and eat us. And so knowing that, because we know that that's what is happening, it's about making a choice to activate other parts of you, which is not the reptilian brain, because the reptilian brain is very basic, I guess. I mean, it's essential to our survival, but it's choosing to focus on something different. It's choosing to focus on the 4.7 stars, because you know as well that everything is energy, and therefore what you've really focused on grows. Where you put your attention, this is what's going to create reality with the repetition. So it's actually important, like it's the science of manifestation, like being very careful about where do we put our energy, where do I put my focus, because what kind of and choosing what kind of reality do I want to create for myself. And it's not just about wishful thinking and positive thinking, it's about positive thinking, but also then taking the steps and also hearing the fears or the doubts, acknowledging them, not denying them. So it's coming into wholeness. And when we realize, okay, I'm here, I'm only focusing on the 0.3 of people who didn't like it, like getting deeper into yourself. Okay, what am I worried about here? What do I make that mean? That's a really important question you can ask yourself. What do I make those 0.3 mean about me, about my worth as a musician, as a writer? And then like basically catching yourself in your own bullshit.
Right.
and then choosing differently, choosing different thoughts, choosing different beliefs, and staying in gratitude is always really helpful, right? Like being in gratitude for those 4.7, the 4.7 stars, all the people who actually loved it, being grateful for their support, for their love, and choosing to focus on that. Because focusing on in the past, when there was a tiger, it was important for us to focus on the tiger. Now it's not anymore. Focusing on the 0.3, where is that going to lead you? Are you learning from that? Like maybe there's something to learn from that. But after that, once it's learned, okay, how does it help us to stay focused on that? It doesn't, does it?
Right.
It's like that analogy of if there's a hot stove, and you touch it, and then you get that signal, okay, I need to take my hand off. So it was useful for me to feel that burn, so I don't burn my whole hand. But once I know that, I don't need to leave my hand on the stove to realize there's danger here.
But we leave our mind on the stove, so to speak, because it's a different kind of pain. Yeah, I guess when we were back in the days of our cave upbringings, if there was a 0.3 tiger around, it only takes one encounter with that tiger to end it all. So it is life and death. So it is really important to pay attention to that, because 0.3, those numbers will come up eventually. It's not like winning the lottery where you can play every day and never win or never get struck by lightning or something. But those are fairly decent odds, over the long stretch. But we're not dealing with tigers anymore, is what you're really saying,
Yes. And knowing that your mind is extremely powerful, knowing that your thoughts have power, thoughts are energy, thoughts really are creating your reality. It's paying a lot of attention to what kind of thoughts are we having, because quite often it's our inner dialogue is completely unconscious, just running constantly at the back of our mind, making up all sorts of stories, all sorts of meanings about things. And so we are creating our reality unconsciously in that case. And if it's not the kind of reality we want to see, then it's important that we have the awareness to step back, to observe what's going on here, and to address any fears that are happening so that they can be weakened, or like in the coaching that I do, we call them the saboteurs, which are the self-sabotaging parts of us who are also trying to protect us. It's about acknowledging what's really going on, getting into a dialogue with those parts of us so we can integrate them, and then choosing to reconnect with our true self. And our true self is the self that is wise, that is clear, that has a big picture view, and that is empowered. So it's choosing to activate a different parts of us so we can, achieve our goals and not stay stuck.
Yeah, our minds are the same old hardware that was running back in those days with the Tiger. And it's not like our phones that get updated every year. It's the same machine.
Exactly. And that is the point, right? Like we update our phones, we update our computers, not very often, but we update them because we want them to work optimally. We want them to be fast, to be free of junk, and to do their work at the highest capacity. That's exactly the same with our minds, but no one teaches us that. No one teaches us that. We study for so many years just absorbing information that's completely useless and then regurgitating that at an exam. No one teaches us to actually take care of our minds and to have this mental hygiene and to update the operating system. Because it's exactly what you said. We are full of programming. We are full of conditioning that comes from our childhood, from our education, from every single experience that we have had. And that makes up our mind and its filters and its beliefs. And it stays unchecked and unquestioned unless we actually actively do that work of starting to look within, to question everything. And I think what you said before about artists is so interesting. You said it's about like being aware, like being perceptive and questioning things. So it's like using that same quality of curiosity and starting to question everything and start to shift these beliefs, these thoughts that many of them were not even used in the first place. They were just absorbed. That's what we call conditioning or programming. And deep down, like to me, it's about freedom. It's like, I don't want to be programmed. I want to be my own. I want to be, what's the word? It's like self-mastery. I want to be my own person. I want to put in my mind what serves me rather than just being programmed. So it's about true freedom to be who I really am, freedom to be able to operate from my highest potential. And that's always evolving. That's always unfolding, always evolving. But it's important to clean up what's going on here and to update the system so you can get to the next level, essentially, in your life.
Yeah, we get swept away in those thoughts. It's like, I think of it like a movie a lot of times when you're sitting in a movie and it's really good, maybe you're even at a theater, and you forget that you're watching a movie after a while. You're in this world, you're completely accepting that whatever crazy rules of the world exist, that we have superheroes or there's monsters or whatever the story proposes. And I think that's a lot like how we think most of the time. We're completely absorbed in this story that we're not even really aware we're telling ourselves. Like we're not even aware we're watching the movie. When it's at its best, that movie experience, you kind of forget you're even watching the movie.
Absolutely. This is a beautiful and really useful analogy. Like you said, we get lost into the movie. We become the character, right? Like even though we are at the cinema, we absolutely become the character. We have those emotions. We tense when there's something is dangerous in the movie. So it's exactly that. We are lost inside our own movie. We are the characters. We forget that all of this was a storyboard. and we forget that we actually are the person watching the movie rather than the movie itself. And the person watching the movie is you're also the director, the producer, the scriptwriter. You get to decide. So it's taking your power back and realizing I get to decide. I get to choose what I'm going to believe. I get to choose how I see the world. I get to decide that I claim to be an artist and a musician. I get to not believe, like step away from the belief that I'm not good enough. I get to believe that I'm working on getting better, like all sorts of things. So you get to rewrite all of that. That's something I do as well in my sessions. Sometimes I have my clients rewrite the story, rewrite the next chapter of their lives.
So the next chapter, do you mind explaining that? That sounds pretty interesting. Is that an actual writing activity?
Yeah, or just a storytelling activity. So, when clients come to me, quite often they feel a little bit lost. They feel stuck. They have lost their confidence. They don't feel focused, whatever that may be. So I'm like, okay, this was the story so far. And now let's imagine we are at a campfire and you're going to tell me a really exciting story. As all the exciting stories, there's a hero, a heroine. They're going to go on this great adventure and, some things are going to happen and we are all rooting for the hero. So what's happening next? What's the next chapter we want to write or you want to write on this story? Then we give it a title. It's like helping people, envision a different future, a different next chapter in their music career for themselves. Remembering that they get to write the script, remembering their strengths, and it's having a vision, right? Like quite often as well, I think we can get so focused on the little action steps, the little day-to-day, and I find it really helpful to reconnect to the bigger vision, to your purpose, allowing yourself to dream bigger.
So that's really an empowerment thing then, where if you're writing this story that's just kind of being told in your mind and you don't even realize it, to then reframe it. I imagine that's probably useful. I mean, we're talking about you've got 4.7 stars, but what happens when you have 1.2 stars? How do you handle that? Because that does happen too sometimes. Sometimes there really is more negativity than positivity in response to what we do.
Yeah. So again, it's a question of perspective. 1.2 stars, great. It can only improve from there, right?
Okay.
There's so many things I can improve on. Like, I think it's all a matter of perspective and realizing, okay, we are here to learn, we are here to grow, we are here to improve. No one is asking you to make things perfectly. No one out there is asking you to make the perfect track, and all the world wants from you is to start to show up for your music career. And every time you do something, every time you're actually putting yourself out there, you're taking action, you're actually further along the way than if you just stay stuck because you don't feel like you can put this out, or you don't feel like I can reach out to this person because I'm not ready yet. You're further along, even if you quote unquote failed. I don't believe in failure. That's why it's quote unquote. It's either you learn or you succeed. So when you put the thing out, let's say you have in the terms of music, let's say you have like a bad review or whatever, you're further along because you've done something, you're showing up, you can learn from this, you can learn to become more resilient. Maybe you you realize that, okay, someone's bad review is just someone's opinion. Maybe you also realize, okay, this wasn't my best work. What happened? What can I do differently next time? So it's sort of a question of, I'm here to learn. And if I actually show up for my music career, and first of all, I can't expect everything to work perfectly and everything to happen as if by magic. As we know, there's no overnight success. That doesn't exist. There's actually a lot of steps taken and a lot of dead ends or things that don't work out. And you're just building, right? Slowly, you're building. And acknowledging, and also I think what can be helpful is acknowledging the journey traveled, because as much as I feel it's important to have a vision of where you want to go, an inspiring vision, something empowering, we never look back at the journey traveled, right? And we never actually realize, wow, I did all of this already. And realizing everything that had to happen for you to even be here, for you to release the song and have a 1.2 star, you're further along than you were maybe 5 years ago when you didn't release anything and you weren't writing and you were not showing up for your music career. Do you know what I mean? So it's a question of perspective and understanding that all it is a journey. It's a journey. Yeah. There's really no destination to get to.
Yeah, the failures sometimes are the most valuable experiences because if you are mindful to take it as a learning experience, you can really gain a lot and make a lot of changes, adjust things, decide what's working, what's not working. It's great feedback. I mean, when we talk about online too, there's definitely a percentage of people that are just writing things just to amuse themselves probably and get a rise out of people. There's like some percentage I think you can sort of just wash away a little bit. But it is useful to see what's happening with people and their reactions, and also your own reaction, I guess, too, about that, because that's valuable feedback that you can act on. It gives you, and I think this idea that you have about like rewriting the story for the future is really powerful, because then you can take that and, all right, what am I going to do with it? Instead of it happening to you, now you're making it happen.
Yeah, and I also believe in this philosophy of nothing is happening to us, everything is happening for us. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a perspective of, okay, like the universe is supporting me, or whatever you want to call it. I'm supported. And every single experience is here for my benefits, to help me see something, to help me heal something, to help me become stronger, to help me understand something. So nothing is wasted, really. Like even like a failed thing is not a wasted experience if you make the most of it, right? It's like finding the gift in it. Like, what can you learn? What kind of qualities can you grow from this experience? It's like turning that into gold. It's alchemy. I'm going to make this work for me. I'm having this big challenge, and I'm going to rise even higher because of this challenge, thanks to this challenge.
Yeah, it's a gift, really, in a way.
It's learning to see the gift.
Yeah.
Right? It's learning to see the gift on when there's something that doesn't look like a gift. It's like, okay, let me see how can I turn this into a gift. Because everything can be turned into a gift if you want to. I'm not saying it's easy.
Right. One of my favorite quotes from literature, I guess, and I often give this to my classes as a high school teacher, and I did it very recently, and it's from Hamlet, and Hamlet says I might mix the words up a little bit, but there's nothing good or bad in a thing, but thinking makes it so. Things are just things, and it's how you think about it. And it was so funny that I had this lesson on the board, ready to be projected to my next class. And another teacher came in and was like, "Oh, faculty meeting after school today." And I was like, "Oh," because I just had it in my head. I'm going to get home. I might get a nap in today. I was really looking forward to this. And I had that reaction where I let this thing affect me negatively. And then I look at my board and I have this quote and I'm like, okay, let's not be like the victim of this situation, of the random thought that popped in my head. And maybe the only reason I had the negative thing is because whoever said it was like, oh, we gotta go to this thing later. And that might have just been like the coloring given to me and made me see the negative in it. But having that in mind, it was amazing how I was able to switch it and be like, no, like I'm about to, you hypocrite, you're about to like preach this to your class, telling people, yeah, things aren't bad. It's just how you think about it. And here you are, so but it was like a thing, it was an activity in my mind. I had to do it. I had to actively correct that course. And like you said, it's not always easy. And there are definitely things that happen to us in life that are really hard to see the positive in. So it's not to discount that, but and sometimes there actually is some positivity in these things too. And I love that perspective you have. It doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Because then you can really look at things and say like, all right, this is a challenge. This is something that's going to make me stronger if I choose to take it that way. Those are the hard things in life. But if you can do that on the little things, like your meeting after, like, big deal, like what a good problem to have, you idiot, like so many other things could be going wrong in your life. So it's such an important perspective when you can remember.
It's a process and we're not going to do it right all the time. And awareness is key. Like you did, like you started to think one way and then you had the awareness, you saw the quote again and you remembered and you chose differently. So that's all we're required to do. Like I think we know so many, I'm going to speak for myself here. I know so many things on the level of the mind intellectually, but I don't know how much of it I actually embody. Like probably a small percentage because it's a practice. It's a practice. It's not like, oh yeah, I really believe that. And suddenly I am it. Like I need to constantly practice it, remember it, go back on the horse when I fall. It's a practice. And it's okay sometimes sometimes it feels good to complain and to moan and to feel like a victim for a second, right? Like I think it's so much more empowering to take responsibility and to own our reality, to create it consciously and so on, rather than feel like a victim. But sometimes I'm going to kind of like slip down into let me feel like a victim for a while and just complain and moan, and then you don't want to get stuck there because it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I noticed this too yesterday as well. One of my friends there came to visit me in my classroom, and I was in the middle of being annoyed about something that I had received and annoyed that I had to explain myself over it. And he caught me like in that moment where I was dealing with it, and he left. He left like right away. Like, I wasn't like mean or rude or anything, but my vibe wasn't what he was looking for, I guess. And it was funny that he just kind of left, whereas normally he might sit down and hang out. And I kind of noticed that too. And I was like, and again, like, what am I like getting worried about this for? This is really if this is the worst thing that happens to me today, then this is going to be a great day,
Yeah.
So but it's an exercise, like you said, and it's really amazes me how much the mind is like any other part of the body. I mean, it is the body. And I think we forget that. We separate mind and body, but your brain is in the body. And it's like exercise. Like you can go for a run and do really well and be like, yeah, all right, I ran a couple miles. Awesome. But you're not done. Just like I learned this thing talking to you, right? Even last time we spoke, some of these things we've said to each other already, and you got to hear it again and you got to practice it again. It's not like, well, now I've run and I'm good. now I know this thing and it'll never affect me again. Because I think before I really understood that, I kind of got frustrated a lot where I know this, but still I'm frustrated. Still I'm mad. Still I'm upset that I got this bad response or this song wasn't good, and I don't care. Like, I know I'm supposed to think this, but it's, you know what I mean? Like, there's,
Yeah. And we are human. I think we try, as long as we are somehow trying our best. We're human. It's okay to sleep, like I said, and like having a lot of self-compassion is helpful as well. When we
mm,
sleep, when we start to get annoyed by things that shouldn't matter, have some compassion for ourselves in the process. Like, okay, what do I really need? Like expressing our emotions, feeling what we're feeling, and then yeah, it's literally a practice, and you know
mm,
um, it's okay that sometimes we forget and we feel our feelings, and we're human, and yeah.
mm. Well, this kind of leads to something you mentioned in our emails back and forth before this talk about keeping yourself moving when you feel stagnant. And that's something that has happened to me where once I intellectually understand the problems I'm having, and I can talk other people through them sometimes, but then when I run into them, it's like I thought I was past this. I thought I understood this. So it can make you feel like you're stuck, you're not moving forward when every single time I make a song, I start doubting like everything about myself, you know? And I imagine all of these, everyone I know is going to start hating me because of this song I made. So it all comes back every time.
But does it come back to exactly the same intensity and the same level than before each time, would you
Well,
say?
you kn- it depends. I mean, sometimes, especially if it happens enough times in a row, it it is almost worse actually because like are you getting nowhere? That's like like these thoughts which we talked about, which is like the movie we're watching, just pop back in the head, and it's just like you've been doing this too long to still be feeling this, buddy. Like maybe you just don't have it, Maybe all you really have is the fact that you've been doing it for so long, but you actually still have no right, you still stink.
Yeah, because that's basically because that part, right? The what we can call the saboteur part or the protector is maybe not feeling fully is loud, like it's loud, right? It's there, but maybe we haven't engaged with that part fully and have a conversation with that part. That's the kind of work I do with my clients, where I help
Hmm.
them shift this by really facing it and really having a conversation with it, um, and even extending love to it, right? Because that part is shit scared. That's what it
Hmm.
is. That part is so scared. It's like and you can visualize maybe a little some, it can come up in any sorts of ways. I know that sometimes when I do those visualizations for myself with my own coach, there's parts of me that are scared as well to show up in a bigger way, to be out there more, to promote myself or whatever. And this part came to me as this like little tiny insect, like a flea. It was a flea.
Hmm.
And suddenly when you see it as a flea, it's like, okay, it's it was so uh, powerless in a way. It's a flea, but I started to have a conversation with it, and I could hear what the flea wanted to, what they were scared of, but also their power. Because the flea was like, okay, actually, I'm small, so I can get places, I can observe, like while being hidden, while feeling safe, I can actually observe, learn from the terrain, and then we can go there. So I was like, oh, cool. I can see how the flea is actually a nice ally.
Hmm.
It's like this spy, and also I can see how the flea feels a little bit like she needs protection from me. She needs me to help her. I don't know if that what I'm saying makes sense, because I know it makes sense for me in my head. What I'm trying to say here is that as we engaged more deeply with those parts of us, to really hear what they're worried about, to really hear their fear, and then to start to help them feel acknowledged, to help them feel heard, what happens typically is that then these parts weakens. So we don't hate on them. We actually face them, we love on them, and then they weaken. And then, they're going to still pop up, but at a different level, with a different intensity. And then we can take our power back. We can have those conversations again and again and again, right? It's a process. So I would say that when this voice comes up and is berating you and telling you, okay, you should know by now, like you've been doing this for a while, whatever it's saying, I would invite you to get into a conversation with this part of you. Right?
This happened to me last night, actually. So last night was the first time I've played live music in about 4 years, probably, between the pandemic and just not thinking about that for a while. It's been about 4 years. So my band and I were getting ready to play a show for the release of our album. And I realized I was nervous about it, but I was kind of trying to suppress it. Just like, no, come on, stop. Don't be nervous. But I was nervous that maybe no one would show up. Maybe the venue that was having this was a record store, and they'd be like disappointed, like, we let you guys here and there's no one came. Thanks. Because we didn't have other bands to rely on. It was just us. And then a lot of people showed up, and it was like, wow, this is great. Awesome. But that brings another set of nerves with you, right? Because if there's no one there, then like if we play bad, then who cares, right? So then it's like, oh man, we better make sure we're good. Like, oh, who are they gonna like it? All this stuff starts happening. And again, I'm trying to just like put it aside and talk to people and just enjoy all of that. And somebody said point blank to me, "You nervous?" And I was like, no, well, yeah, I am. But then in that face-to-face thing, like you said, I looked at it and I said, I care about this. This is important, and I want it to go well. And this energy I'm feeling, I'm going to put this into what we're doing. And I'm not going to have this thing like, oh, is everyone liking this? Like, oh no, like, because it could have gone that way really easily. But that question was, and it all happened in my head pretty quick, where I said, no, I'm not. I was like, yeah, but it's like, it's good energy. I decided that it was good energy and I was going to use it to help me. And it was a big help. And I'm really glad that person asked that question. And you would almost think that it's the exact opposite of what you would want to do. Like, don't bring it up, And that's what I was trying to do. I was really trying to push it away.
Yeah. That's what happens when you push it away. What you resist persists. When you push it away, it doesn't go away. Right? It stays stuck. So it's like an emotion that stays stuck in your body. So when you actually give it space, give it airtime, then you realize, oh, actually, yeah, I'm nervous because it's important to me. And then there's a lot of compassion in that. Yeah, it's important to me. I care. Like it comes from this beautiful place of, I care. It's important to me. And then I love what you said of like, okay, there's an energy there. And as you know, nervousness, feeling nervous is one step from feeling excited. It's excited, but like a bit like it's the same energy. So you can reframe it by saying, I'm excited, because it feels the same in your body when you're nervous, when you're excited. So using that energy and putting it into the show and then remembering, okay, yes, it's important to me, but what's really important? Like people are here to have a good time, right? They're not here to, they're not here to like,
they weren't here to destroy
perfectly.
us. Yeah. They weren't there to like, we're going to boo these guys. Let's go.
No. And they want you to win. Like people who see you, like whoever, like for everyone listening, when people come to your show, when people follow you on social media or on Spotify, they want to see you win, right? They want to see you win. And especially with live events, people just want to have a good time. So it's like removing that pressure from yourself. At the same time, knowing that you care, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's okay to feel nervous. It's reassuring that part of you that is nervous.
I think that's exactly what I said. I said, nah. Then I was like, well, yeah, I mean, and then I said, I'm excited. It's kind of like all happened in seconds in my mind, but it was
Mhm.
this face it, look it in the face, and sudden. It's like, as soon as you look at the monster, it kind of like fades away, or you realize it's not so bad, and it became like the ally. It was helpful.
Exactly. It's transforming that into an ally.
Yeah, and we played, and it was a lot of fun. And shortly into it, I broke a string on my guitar. Like, oh, and
That was,
yeah, and it's just like, oh no, like, but again, like
but
in
that's kind
that,
of cool, isn't it? To break a string on your guitar, it means like you are really rocking
no,
it. No, it wasn't cool.
I didn't think it was cool. No, no, I know what you mean though. Yeah, we were into it. We were having fun, and it just snapped. But it was like funny just how like challenges come up at the right time, because it was, I think, the third song in, and we're starting to feel it. It's starting to like, all right, this is going good. People are, oh no, like, and what are you gonna do now? And then it's just like, okay, this is like another opportunity to roll with it and figure it out. And luckily, I brought another guitar. Thankfully, I was
Mhm.
smart enough, because I don't know if I brought strings, but I did bring another guitar, and it just, again, like, it gives you something to roll with and something to work off of. And it's not always easy to do that, but when you can, it's amazing how it becomes empowering when you take responsibility. I love reversing that Spider-Man quote of, with great power comes great responsibility, but saying with great responsibility comes great power.
Mm.
When you take responsibility, you can do something about it. You're not a
Exactly.
victim.
And you're I don't know if the word is stronger or more, you're somehow a better musician because you have handled that challenge of the string breaking in the middle of the song. You learn from it, you were able to roll with it, and now you're an even more prepared musician for the next time because you've had to face that challenge.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's not the first time that's ever happened. I couldn't even tell you how many times that's happened on stage. And I think all those experiences add up to last night being like, okay, we're going to work around this. Luckily the guitar stayed in tune well enough, because sometimes it goes way out of tune when the tension changes when you break a string. But yeah, it's a good reminder. Sometimes you need those things to happen. My drummer broke a drumstick too,
Wow.
which is,
You were really going for it.
well, yeah. And the funny thing is, it was a relatively small place, just a little record shop. So we were playing lower volume, but I guess we still had a lot of that energy going. And
Yeah,
so, but those are opportunities, and you don't necessarily want them to come up, but when they do, to look at them as a chance to improve and grow.
yeah, yeah. That's the only way we grow, truly. We don't learn and grow when everything is smooth, plain sailing.
Yeah.
And it's never smooth, plain sailing for everyone all of the time. That's not how life on this planet works. So, there's going to be highs and lows. There's going to be great joys and challenges. That's the adventure of life. Like I think we would probably get complacent and bored if it was just always working out,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't grow.
Right. I always use this analogy of like playing basketball against a 5-year-old. If I played basketball against probably even like 5-year-olds, I'd dominate and be like a superstar, right? But where's the fun in that? There's no challenge. That's why we like things that are kind of just hard enough where we don't succeed every time, where it does fail, where there is this, it's not always working out, and it makes those wins that more sweet.
Absolutely, exactly. It's in order to feel, in order to have the capacity to feel like really joyful and really happy and blissful, you need to be able to feel really stuck and hopeless as well, because it's like you're expanding your capacity to feel. So as you go through those darker times, you get also to, like you said, to really appreciate the easier times much more.
I think it's really important to celebrate those moments. I always say that to people when they finish a song. I'm like, that's awesome. Great job. Like, you did the nearly impossible. Last night, I'm glad I had the presence to just soak it in a little bit. Where a couple of years ago, when we first started playing together, we were just fooling around playing songs, and we decided let's make this into a record. Like, we'll get it vinyl printed. And then last night, after we had played, we're looking around. There's all these people, and they're holding our record, and it's like, we made this out of nothing. Nothing existed before this, and now look. And on whatever it is, if it's just making a song or a painting, or you are manifesting art out of nothing, thin air. And it's very unlike the jobs we were talking about before. The restaurant already existed when I became a waiter there,
Mm-hmm.
But even that, you could look at that and say, like, these people didn't have food and now they do. And,
Mm-hmm.
they had a dinner and it worked out pretty well for them. There's something important, I think, in not diminishing those accomplishments. Because otherwise
Absolutely.
we it's the same thing. It's like the 0.3 when stars thing, where we acknowledge, oh man, we didn't do it. But when you do it, to also give that
Yeah.
daylight.
And I think we don't do that enough. We don't acknowledge enough. We don't celebrate enough every step of the way that we take, all the little milestones that you achieve, the big achievements. And that's a shame, because first of all, we don't feel like that happiness and that joy enough. Like, if we just brush it and move on to the next thing, because that's typically what we do. We always move the goalposts, and we always move to the next thing. And it's super, super important to celebrate for many reasons. First of all, because allow yourself to feel what you actually want to feel, because that's the whole reason you wanted to put the music out, have the record out, is to feel how you felt when it was there. And also, in order to keep going when things get tough, it's important to build that sense of self-trust within yourself. And so when you celebrate each step of the way, you are recognizing the good. So you are training your brain to focus on what's working. And you're kind of like giving yourself that evidence that it's worth it, that the journey is worth it. That like all the struggles you may have, or the challenges you may have, are worth it, because actually you're also celebrating along the way. And because you're focusing on the good stuff, the positive stuff, the achievement, you're putting more energy, more positive energy into that. And so you are allowing yourself as well to expand this positive energy into more opportunities, into more creativity, because you are at that higher vibration. So it's super important to celebrate and to acknowledge yourself for everything. Yeah, like you said, you finished the song. Amazing. That's an achievement. You created something out of nothing. Like, look at you.
Yeah.
Magician.
Yeah, it is. It's magic. I've found that something that's really helped me appreciate those victories for myself is actually celebrating other people's victories. There's definitely the ability to feel like jealous when somebody does something, or be like, oh, how did they get that? Why did, all those like feelings of competition you can have with other people. You see people get successful and you say, like, I could do that. Why can't I? There's all those thoughts, right? But in celebrating other people's victories, like, yeah, that's so awesome that you did that. I'm like really happy for you. And being genuinely happy for people has helped me, in an unexpected way, noticing those moments in my own work. Because it's like, I guess you're just tuning the radio station of your mind to success, to things that are working for people. And you see people do it, you say, yeah, good job. Like you did that. You made that happen. You improved, you grew, you did something that most people don't ever do. And most people that start as artists of any kind don't ever produce a thing. They don't get that far because it's hard. And giving, like, it's funny, just, I don't know, it's just funny how it's like the old expression, what goes around comes around. That energy is, it's just, it does you good to wish others well.
Absolutely, absolutely. When we help others, it makes us feel good. We do it because we want to help, but it also makes us feel good when it's done from this honest place. And doing this, what I would call, like, here, like, sometimes it's not silent. Sometimes you're gonna say something on social media as well. You're gonna be supportive, but even silent appreciation to someone who may never ever know that you are cheering them on and congratulating them. Know that energy, all that energy that you put out in that way, will come back to you tenfold. It will come back to you tenfold. So and I get what you say with the jealousy thing. There can be some of that sometimes. And what you can do here is, especially when it's someone who's like a peer, like your direct peer, right? It's easier to feel happy for other people who do something a little bit different to what we do.
Yeah.
But when you feel that kind of like sense of jealousy, you can also like do that exercise of, okay, let me feel happy for them, and then say, oh wow, like, thank you for showing me what's possible for me too, because you've done it. There's no reason why I can't do it. And maybe we don't have the same timing, and maybe for me it's going to happen whenever, but thank you for showing me what's possible for me too. Thank you for paving the way, for opening up possibilities for me. Right? Because you've done that, and maybe now I have this inspiration or this desire to do that as well, or to realize, okay, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, there's examples in human history of that sort of thing happening, where the possibilities are opened. I think it's the 4-minute mile. I think not 5. I think it's 4, but I could be wrong. But everyone thought it was impossible to run the 4-minute mile, less than 4 minutes, until someone did it. And then somebody else does it like a couple weeks later, and now people are doing it because it's like unlocked. It's like, oh, we reached that level. But it was a mental unlock. It wasn't, because again, as we said before, we are the same hardware we were as cave people back in the day. So it was always there, but it just took somebody to pave that way and to show you, look what's possible. It's a great way to think, because it only gives you more power.
Yeah. And when you get into those positive vibrations of acknowledging someone's work, acknowledging the effort, it makes you feel better. It makes you feel good because you are raising your vibration yourself. And when we get pulled into the negativity and the jealousy, you can feel in your body how then you contract, and it doesn't feel good. So you're doing it for them, and you're doing it for you as well. Yeah,
it diminishes their accomplishment. Well, they only got that because they know this person, or their uncle is somebody, whatever excuse you put in there. And you're also closing the door for yourself, because you're really saying, I can't do that because I don't have the uncle, or I don't have that advantage, and it's counterproductive to what you really want.
Exactly.
Interesting. And I gotta always remember these things. I feel like after I talk to you, I'm gonna have all these quotations plastered around the room, just as these reminders, because it's, like we said, you can understand it intellectually, but you really have to practice it. You have to keep coming back to it. It's a practice. It's all a practice of embodying what we already know, because I think most of us, everyone who's listening, you probably know a lot already, right? Like, you're wise already, and it's
starting to embody what we already know. If I believe that, if I'm really grateful, then what am I going to do next? Or if I really believed that I have the right to, if I really own my status as a musician, then what does a musician do? Then I'm gonna show up, right? I'm gonna stay consistent. If I really believed that someone out there needs to hear my music, like more than one person, like if I really truly believe that my music has an impact and expressing myself is something that is very beneficial to me, then what do I do next? It's really about taking action from that, embodying what we can agree to intellectually. And that's definitely a practice.
Yeah, it's a practice. I kind of learned that in a yoga class once. Because I think somebody said, like, I'm not good at yoga, right? And it's not about good, like you're good at it. It's wherever you are. If you can stretch this way, get into this pose, whatever, how deep you can go. It's not about like, oh, you're really good at it. It's just that you're doing it and that you're practicing it, that you're going through it. That it's not
Yeah.
it's not a competition. There's no points on the board or anything. And some days you're more flexible than others. Some days you have more strength than others. But the fact that you're doing it is just putting more into that well of ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially with yoga and the yogis of the East, like the figure, without talking about that, without going on a tangent, but for them, it's really a way of life. So the physical practice, the asana, is just one little part of what it means to be a yogi. And it's embodying all these different aspects and being in their lives as, as a yogi, like with all these philosophy and these principles, but like, how do I then show up in my family, in my day to day, when I go to work, and so on.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's funny how, as you learn about various things in life, you can see how they're all connected and how a lot of the principles of anything you do can apply to other things you do that seem totally unrelated.
Everything is connected. Everything is connected. I also find that too. Every time I learn something new, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand now, like that other thing that I read in that book and how it's actually the same thing, but from a different, everything is connected.
Yeah, it's good reason to do other things. You can almost like work on your art by doing something totally different, riding a bicycle. You can become a better artist in that way when you start looking for the connections. But riding a bicycle, it's balance, right? It's you have to have the momentum going, and it's a lot like an artist where it's so much about building momentum, staying balanced, and monitoring what you're doing. And half the time you're in the flow, and the other, all that stuff. Sometimes the road gets bumpy. We can play around with that, I'm sure, if we think about it.
Yeah, it's like knowing where you're going, being able to handle the bumps. If you fall over, how do I get back up?
One pedal at a time.
How do I keep the machine well functioning and oiled? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, all that too. That's funny. So we were talking, you're going to have a class coming up. And you said it should be early May?
Yeah, I think the first week of May. I don't have the exact title yet, but I'm going to create a 2-pack workshop to help artists overcome procrastination. So the way I want to do it is, help you understand where procrastination comes from, and then you will have something that you choose to complete in between the 2 workshops. So you have that accountability. So yeah, it should be super fun. My aim is to help you get something completed, whatever it may be. Maybe it's finishing a song or reaching out to 10 promoters, whatever it may be for you. So yeah, it's coming up early May. So hopefully when the podcast is released, I will have a link to give you. But otherwise, the best thing would be to register to my newsletter that you can find on my website, olympiacoaching.com. So you can receive all the information when that is ready for you to sign up.
Nice. Yeah. And I think we'll have that link in the show notes when we put this one live so that people can click on it. But getting involved in the newsletter is a good idea anyway, because there's wisdom coming all the time, stuff that you can apply to your life and your work. And procrastination, that's a big one. In some ways, maybe this is a positive framing. Because of procrastination for making music, my dishes are usually clean. My laundry gets done. Like the house gets cleaned. The chores get done out of whatever it is, fear, procrastination of like getting to work. Sometimes the best way to get my chores done is to tell myself I'm going to work on some music today. And then you do almost anything you can to avoid that. Even though it's the thing you love to do. It's very funny. You would think that there would be no procrastination because you love doing this. You choose to do this, but it's a major hurdle all the time. Every time. Every time, literally. It's I have to fight it every time.
Yeah, and there are reasons for that. So hopefully if you come to the workshop, you learn why you procrastinate, because there are good reasons why we procrastinate. It's not just about habits, and there's ways to overcome it as well.
That sounds like fun, and it sounds very useful for really anybody, not even just artists or musicians.
Yeah, because we all do it sometimes. Procrastination is a very human thing, but as you said, it's important to learn ways and tips and techniques to overcome it. Otherwise, it's slowing us down. It's holding you back from what you said, from what you really want to do.
And I like that you're making some work happen in there too. You're going to challenge people to actually do the work. So
yes,
in a way, what's nice about signing up for the workshop is that you're going to be forced to do something. And sometimes it's good to put yourself in your back against the wall a little bit and force accountability.
Accountability is so important. With all the people I work with, they're the majority of the people I work with, they're very good at staying accountable to other people and delivering on their word, but they're terrible at staying accountable to themselves, which is why coaching is so powerful, because you have someone there with you, working alongside you, who's going to hold you accountable to what you say you're going to do. So I never force my clients to do any specific thing. I suggest sometimes assignments, but they're the ones who decide. But then they know that I will ask about it, and then we can discuss, what's happening, what's happening if they're not doing it, and go there and go deeper. But yeah, accountability is very, very beneficial.
Yeah, it's funny. You can really be good with other people. I mean, we have this podcast scheduled and I had to be here. So I'm here. I mean, and I can't let you down. You're expecting me to be here. So I could do the same thing though, like at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning for me. I know we're in different spots of the world here, but that's where I am. And if it was music, make a song, work on this, I don't know. I could be like, well, why don't you just rest a little while? You had a big night last night, whatever it is. So, but
thank you for showing up to your own podcast.
Thank you for showing up. It was great to have you again.
Because you had a gig last night. So I mean it.
Well, it was an early one too, which was kind of nice. I was at a record shop, so it wasn't like a party scene, and it was at a relatively decent, played at 7:30. I mean, that was great. Normally it's like 1 a.m. So it was nice to not be like suffering this morning in any way. But, just you can make excuses for yourself and give yourself permission. It's a much different animal with procrastination when it's just you. It's the same thing with band practice. Band practice happens usually 5:30 or so on Thursday nights. So, and I have to do it. And there are times even where I'm tired, whatever, but it always happens because we're all going to be there. But my own work is much different. And that's when the chores get done. But thanks so much for coming back and talking again.
Of course, of course. It was, as always, a real pleasure to be with you. And I really enjoyed it. I feel, like you have a great energy as well, of very grounding and peaceful. And I appreciate that because I
Thanks.
also, like I think I mentioned last time, I do get nervous also before doing these podcasts. Yeah, it was lovely to be here. And I think we covered some like deep topics today. So if anyone resonates with what we talked about today, I would love to hear from you. So I hope you do join my mailing list to get informed about all different free workshops and get my content, and also check out my program. I've got a program for artists. It's a one-on-one coaching program called Thrive. It's completely personalized, and it's designed to help you find clarity, feel confident, stay the course when things feel hard, keep going, and achieve your goals in music. Because what you do is important. What you, all artists, do is very important. I really believe that, as you learn to clear away the things that are holding you back, and doing what you need to do to reframe your mindset, to stay focused, to take action, then you are able to bring forth your best creative projects into the world. And I really truly believe that, when you do that, then it shifts. And I know, as you've noticed, I like to go to talk about energy and frequency, but I really do believe that art then changes the vibration of the world, and it benefits us all. So it's important.
I agree. And we've probably all been moved by art in some level. So to not share it is very sad. So it's important. It's a responsibility and a privilege.
A privilege, yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Ariane. And check out olympiacoaching.com. You'll find everything there, and they'll be in the show notes as well. And thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Brian. Bye-bye.
Hey, if you enjoyed the Music Production Podcast, please consider giving it a review on your favorite podcast provider and share it with a friend, somebody that you think might enjoy the show and get something out of it. That would mean a lot to me. And if you want to check out more of my work, including sound packs, tutorials, etc., head over to brianfunk.com. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.